Crimson dust swirled like phantom spirits around the 5 wagons as they creaked through the narrow canyon passage. The walls of rusted stone rose on either side, casting long shadows that provided little relief from the merciless western Texas heat. Vultures circled lazily overhead, patient witnesses to the human caravan that dared traverse this unforgiving territory, a no-man's land where Apache, Mexican, and American claims overlapped in blood-soaked dispute. At the front of the second wagon, Scarlet Fox sat rigidly beside the driver, her fiery hair, the source of her name, bound tightly beneath a wide-brimmed hat. Unlike the other women who traveled in the relative comfort of the covered wagons, she preferred to watch the landscape unfold before her. The untamed wilderness of western Texas fascinated her in ways that Boston society never had. "You should ride inside, Miss Fox," the wagon driver muttered, casting a sideways glance at her. "This ain't proper country for a lady to be exposing herself to the elements." Scarlet turned to him, emerald eyes flashing with quiet defiance. "And yet here I remain, Mr. Holloway, quite alive despite the elements." Her father, Thomas Fox, was a prominent merchant expanding his trading empire westward. While he had reluctantly brought his headstrong daughter along on this venture, he had made it abundantly clear that her role was to assist with inventory and correspondence, not to become enamored with the savage land that had already claimed the lives of countless settlers. But Scarlet had always been drawn to the untamed. Even as a child, she had preferred the company of maps and adventure books to dolls and needlework. At 23, she remained unmarried, a fact that caused no small amount of consternation to her father, who had presented no fewer than 6 suitable bachelors to her in the past 2 years. "Strange country," she murmured, more to herself than to Holloway, as her eyes traced the rust-colored canyon walls that towered above them. The formation reminded her of massive, sleeping giants, their weathered faces etched by time and the elements. Holloway clicked his tongue. "Ain't just strange, Miss Fox. It's dangerous. These canyons belong to no man, not the army, not the settlers, certainly not us. The Apache know every inch of this territory, and the Mexican bandoleros cross back and forth as they please. We're just passing through and praying we pass through quick enough." As if summoned by his words, a strange stillness fell over the canyon. The birds that had been calling to one another suddenly went silent. The only sound was the creaking of wagon wheels and the soft clink of harnesses. Holloway tensed, his weathered hands tightening on the reins. "Something's wrong," he whispered, reaching slowly for the rifle tucked beside his seat. Before his fingers could close around the weapon, the first shot rang out, echoing violently against the canyon walls. The lead wagon's driver jerked backward, a bloom of crimson spreading across his chest before he toppled to the ground. "Bandoleros!" someone shouted from behind them. Chaos erupted. Riders in dusty clothes with bandanas covering their faces descended from the ridge above, firing indiscriminately into the caravan. Scarlet's wagon lurched forward as Holloway whipped the horses into a frantic gallop, trying desperately to outrun the attack. A bullet splintered the wood near Scarlet's head. She ducked instinctively, heart hammering against her ribs. "Get down!" Holloway shouted, but his warning came too late. A second bullet caught him in the shoulder, spinning him sideways off the driver's bench. Scarlet lunged for the reins, but the horses, panicked by the gunfire, veered sharply to the right. The wagon tilted precariously, then overturned completely. Scarlet felt herself hurled through the air. Pain exploded along her side as she struck the ground, the world spinning violently around her. She rolled several times before coming to rest against the base of the canyon wall, dust filling her lungs and blood trickling down her temple. Through a haze of pain and confusion, she saw the bandoleros swarming over the fallen wagons. Her father's voice cut through the din, shouting orders then pleading. A gunshot silenced him mid-sentence. "Father!" she tried to scream, but only a hoarse whisper escaped her parched lips. A shadow fell across her. One of the bandoleros stood over her, his dark eyes gleaming with malice beneath his bandana. He said something in Spanish that she couldn't understand, then reached down to grab her by the hair. Scarlet struggled weakly, her vision beginning to fade at the edges. The man dragged her upright, pressing a knife against her throat. She could smell tobacco and sweat on his clothes, feel the heat of his breath against her cheek. "Pretty girl," he said in broken English. "Worth much gold, yes?" Then, so quickly that Scarlet barely registered the movement, something whistled through the air. The bandit stiffened, his grip on her hair loosening. When he collapsed, she saw the arrow protruding from his back, its shaft decorated with red and black bands. More arrows rained down from above, finding their marks with terrifying precision. The bandoleros scrambled for cover, firing wildly at unseen assailants. 3 fell before they could reach their horses. The others mounted and fled, dust billowing behind them as they raced toward the Mexican border. Scarlet sank to her knees, her strength deserting her. Through blurred vision, she saw a figure descending the canyon wall with the agility of a mountain lion. Tall and lean, moving with silent purpose, the man approached the devastation of the caravan. He carried a bow in one hand and wore only buckskin leggings, his copper skin glistening with sweat in the harsh sunlight. An Apache warrior. Scarlet tried to crawl away, to hide herself among the scattered goods from the overturned wagons, but her limbs refused to cooperate. The warrior moved methodically through the carnage, checking each body. When he reached Mr. Holloway, the wagon driver stirred feebly. Without hesitation, the Apache knelt and pressed a knife to the man's throat. "No!" Scarlet cried out, her voice finally breaking through her terror. "Please, don't kill him." The warrior's head snapped up, dark eyes locking onto her with the intensity of a predator sighting prey. For a long moment, he stared at her, his expression unreadable. Then, to her surprise, he withdrew the knife and instead pressed a cloth against Holloway's wound. Scarlet struggled to her feet, swaying as dizziness threatened to overwhelm her. The warrior watched her warily as she staggered toward them. "Thank you," she managed, gesturing to Holloway, "for not—" The world tilted suddenly, and Scarlet felt herself falling. Before darkness claimed her completely, she felt strong arms catch her, smelled sage and pine, and heard a voice speak in a language as ancient as the canyon walls themselves. Tahu of the Mescalero Apache had not intended to intervene in the affairs of white settlers. He had been tracking the bandoleros for 3 days, following them from the border where they had raided his people's hunting grounds. Justice, not mercy, had guided his arrows. Yet, as he lifted the unconscious white woman, her hair the color of desert flames, something stirred within him. Perhaps it was the way she had pleaded for the life of her companion despite her own peril. Perhaps it was simply that he had witnessed too much death that day. Whatever the reason, Tahu made a decision that would forever alter the course of his life. Instead of leaving the wounded to the mercy of the desert, he would bring them to his people's camp. The elders would not approve, but the code of his ancestors demanded that courage be met with respect, regardless of the color of one's skin. The woman stirred in his arms, her eyelids fluttering. For an instant, her gaze met his, green as the rare desert bloom that appeared after spring rains. Then her eyes closed once more, and she went limp against his chest. Tahu looked to the horizon, where storm clouds gathered above distant mountains. Night would fall soon, bringing the deadly cold of the desert. If they remained here, none would survive until morning. He spoke quietly to the wounded driver, who regarded him with a mixture of fear and confusion. "Can you walk, white man?" he asked in halting English. Holloway nodded weakly, clutching his bloodied shoulder. "Then follow, or die here." Tahu's words were not a threat but a simple statement of fact. With the red-haired woman in his arms and the wounded driver stumbling behind him, Tahu began the long journey back to his people's camp, nestled high in the mountains where desert gave way to pine forest. Behind them, vultures descended upon the remains of the caravan, their shadows stretching long across the blood-soaked earth of the canyon floor. Scarlet awoke to the sound of soft chanting. Her head throbbed, and the bitter taste of herbs lingered on her tongue. She lay upon a bed of soft furs inside what appeared to be a wickiup, a dome-shaped dwelling made of brush and hide. A small fire burned in a central pit, filling the space with fragrant smoke that escaped through a hole in the roof. Memory returned in disjointed fragments: the attack, the bandoleros, her father's silenced voice, and the Apache warrior who had appeared like a spirit from the canyon walls. She tried to sit up but fell back as pain lanced through her ribs. "Be still," a woman's voice commanded in accented English. "Your bones are bruised, not broken, but you must rest." An elderly Apache woman knelt beside her, grinding something in a small stone mortar. Her face was deeply lined, like the canyon walls themselves, but her dark eyes remained sharp and alert. "Where am I?" Scarlet asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You are among the people," the woman replied. I am Nasha, medicine woman of this band. Tahu brought you to us. Tahu? The one who saved you from the Mexican thieves. Nasha mixed the ground herbs with water from a small clay pot. Drink this. It will ease your pain. Scarlet hesitated, then accepted the bitter mixture. As she drank, questions tumbled through her mind. The man who was with me. The white man lives, Nasha said curtly, but his wound festers. I have done what I can. And my father? The others from the caravan? Nasha's expression remained impassive. Tahu says all others were dead when he found you. The desert has claimed their bodies now. Grief crashed over Scarlet like a physical blow. Her father, stern but loving in his way, was gone. The realization left her hollow, adrift in an alien world with no anchor to cling to. Why did he bring me here? She asked, after a long silence. That, said a deep voice from the entrance of the wickiup, is what the council wishes to know as well. The warrior from the canyon, Tahu, ducked through the low doorway. In the dim light of the dwelling, Scarlet could see him clearly for the first time. He was younger than she had initially thought, perhaps in his late 20s, with high cheekbones and eyes so dark they appeared almost black. His hair hung in 2 long braids, adorned with beads and a single eagle feather. Unlike the elder woman whose face revealed nothing, Tahu's expression showed clear curiosity as he studied Scarlet. You speak English, Scarlet observed, struggling again to sit up. Tahu nodded once. The soldiers taught me when I was a scout for them, before they betrayed my people. Enough, Nasha said sharply in Apache, rising to her feet. The council waits, Tahu. They will not be patient much longer. With a respectful nod to the elder, Tahu turned his attention back to Scarlet. Can you walk? I think so, she replied, though she was far from certain. Then come. The elders must see that you are no threat to us. Nasha helped Scarlet to her feet. Her clothes had been replaced with a simple buckskin dress, and her hair hung loose around her shoulders. She swayed slightly, leaning on the old woman for support. What will they do to me? She asked, unable to keep the fear from her voice. Tahu's expression softened, almost imperceptibly. They will decide your fate. But I have spoken for you already. Outside, the mountain air was cool and crisp, so different from the stifling heat of the canyon. The Apache camp sprawled across a small plateau, with dozens of wickiups arranged in a loose circle. Children paused in their play to stare at her with open curiosity. Women grinding corn or tanning hides watched her pass with more guarded expressions. In the center of the camp, a group of elders, both men and women, sat in a semicircle around a larger fire. They fell silent as Tahu approached with Scarlet and Nasha. An old man with a face like weathered leather spoke in Apache, his tone stern. Chief Nantai asks why he should allow a white woman to remain among us when her people bring nothing but death to the mescalero, Tahu translated. Before Scarlet could respond, shouting erupted from a nearby wickiup. A young Apache man stormed out, dragging Holloway behind him. The wagon driver's face was pale with fever, his wounded shoulder poorly bandaged. This one tried to steal a horse, the young warrior accused in Apache, throwing Holloway to the ground before the council. Tahu's jaw tightened. He spoke quickly to the chief, who listened with a deepening frown. What's happening? Scarlet asked, her heart racing with renewed fear. Your companion has broken our laws, Tahu replied grimly. The penalty is death. No! Scarlet pulled away from Nasha, staggering toward the council. Please, he's injured and afraid. He doesn't understand your ways. The chief regarded her coldly, then spoke again. He says all white men understand theft, Tahu translated. It is what they do best. Holloway looked up at Scarlet, his eyes glassy with fever. Run, Miss Fox, he rasped. While they're distracted. Get back to civilization. I won't leave you, she insisted, then turned to face the council. Drawing on every ounce of courage she possessed, she addressed them directly. I am grateful for your mercy in bringing us here. If punishment must be given, then let it fall on me as well. We are both strangers in your land, both at your mercy. As Tahu translated her words, murmurs spread among the elders. The chief studied her intently, then asked a question. He wants to know why a woman of your standing would risk herself for a common driver, Tahu said. Scarlet straightened her spine, despite the pain that flared through her ribs. Because the measure of any people is how they treat those who depend upon them. My father taught me that. A long silence followed as her words were considered. Finally, the chief spoke again at length. Chief Nantai says you may both remain until the next full moon, Tahu translated, a hint of relief in his voice. By then, the wagon driver must be well enough to leave, with or without you. And if I wish to leave before then? Scarlet asked. Tahu's eyes met hers, something unspoken passing between them. You are not a prisoner, but the desert between here and the nearest white settlement would claim your life within a day. The bandoleros still hunt these lands, and the soldiers patrol the valleys below. Here at least you are safe. The council dispersed, leaving Scarlet standing beside Holloway's crumpled form. Nasha and two younger women came forward to help the injured man back to a healing lodge. Thank you, Scarlet said to Tahu as the others departed, for speaking on our behalf. I did not do it for him, Tahu replied quietly. He would have left you behind to save himself. How could you know that? Tahu's gaze was steady. I have known many white men. Few would risk themselves for a woman not their own. And why did you risk yourself for me? Scarlet challenged, finding an unexpected boldness in her desperation. You could have left me in that canyon. For the first time, Tahu seemed at a loss for words. He looked away, toward the distant mountains where thunderheads gathered. Perhaps, he finally said, I wish to prove that not all men abandon those who depend on them. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Scarlet alone with the weight of her new reality. That night, as she lay sleepless in Nasha's wickiup, Scarlet formulated a plan. Holloway was too weak to travel, but she was recovering quickly. If she could steal a horse, as he had attempted, she might reach Fort Davis within a few days. The soldiers there would escort her back to civilization, back to the life she had known. Yet as she gazed through the smoke hole at the star-filled sky, so much brighter and vaster than she had ever seen in Boston, an unexpected hesitation took root in her heart. What life awaited her there now? Her father was gone, their business in ruins. She would be a woman alone with no fortune and few prospects. Still, anything was better than remaining a captive among those her own people considered savages. With that thought firmly in mind, Scarlet waited until Nasha's breathing deepened into sleep, then slipped silently from the wickiup. The camp was quiet, with only a few sentries visible at its perimeter. Scarlet moved cautiously from shadow to shadow, making her way toward the horse corral on the eastern edge of the plateau. Her ribs protested each movement, but determination drove her forward. The horses, small, sturdy mustangs, watched her approach with pricked ears. Scarlet had ridden since childhood and knew how to gain an animal's trust. She spoke softly to a dun mare, offering her palm to sniff. Just a short ride, she whispered, reaching for the mare's mane. That's all I ask of you. The desert is more dangerous at night, came Tahu's voice from behind her, especially for one who does not know its ways. Scarlet spun around, nearly losing her balance. Tahu stood a few paces away, arms crossed over his chest. He wore no expression of anger or judgment, only a quiet certainty, as if he had expected to find her here. I can't stay, she said, lifting her chin defiantly. This isn't my place. And where is your place, Scarlet Fox? He asked, using her name for the first time. With the soldiers who hunt my people, with the settlers who take our land. I don't belong to either world, she admitted, but at least among my own kind, I understand the rules. Tahu stepped closer, close enough that she could see the firelight from a distant campfire reflected in his eyes. You are not a prisoner here. If you wish to leave, I will not stop you. Scarlet blinked in surprise. You won't? No. He gestured toward the vast darkness beyond the plateau's edge. But the night belongs to the mountain lion and the coyote. The moon is hidden by clouds. Even I would not ride these trails until dawn. She hesitated, looking from Tahu to the mare and back again. Why are you helping me? Your people clearly don't want us here. My people fear what they do not understand, he replied simply, as do yours. A distant howl echoed across the mountain, followed by another closer. Scarlet shivered despite herself. Wait until morning, Tahu said. If you still wish to leave then, I will show you a safer path down the mountain. It was a reasonable compromise, yet Scarlet sensed there was more to his offer than mere practicality. Why would you do that? After saving my life, why help me leave? Tahu was silent for a long moment, his gaze traveling over her face as if memorizing its features. Because a cage, even one built for protection, is still a cage, my people were forced onto reservations by those who claimed it was for our own good. I would not do the same to you. His words struck her with unexpected force. This man, whom she had been taught to fear as savage and primitive, spoke of freedom with a conviction that resonated deep within her own heart. "Until morning, then," she agreed, stepping away from the horses. As they walked back toward the camp, side by side yet carefully not touching, Scarlet found herself studying Tahu's profile against the night sky. There was a nobility in his bearing that reminded her of the ancient statues she had seen in Boston's museums, proud and timeless. "You were a scout for the army," she said, recalling his earlier words. "What happened?" Tahu's pace slowed. "I believed I could bridge the gap between our peoples. I learned your language, your ways. In return, I was asked to hunt my own kind." His voice hardened. "When I refused to lead soldiers to our sacred places, I was beaten and left for dead. That is when I understood that there can be no bridge where one side seeks only to destroy the other." "Not all white people want destruction," Scarlet argued softly. "Perhaps not," he conceded, "but those who hold power rarely listen to those who do not." They had reached Nasha's wickiup. Tahu paused, looking down at Scarlet with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Rest," he said. "The morning brings enough challenges without adding exhaustion to them." Impulsively, Scarlet reached out and touched his arm. "Thank you. For the truth." Tahu glanced down at her pale hand against his skin, surprise flickering across his features. For a heartbeat, they stood connected by that simple touch. Two people from worlds apart, finding an unexpected moment of understanding beneath the vast desert sky. Then he stepped back, breaking the contact. "Truth is all I have to offer," he said quietly, before melting into the shadows of the camp. Scarlet slipped back into the wickiup, finding Nasha still asleep, or at least pretending to be. As she settled onto her bed of furs, she realized that her determination to escape had wavered. In Tahu, she had glimpsed something unexpected, not the savage of frontier tales, but a man of principle and honor. For the first time since awakening in the Apache camp, Scarlet felt not fear but curiosity. What other assumptions about these people, about him, might prove false upon closer examination? With that unsettling question echoing in her mind, she finally drifted into sleep, dreaming not of escape, but of dark eyes that held both strength and sorrow in their depths. By the time the first pale light of dawn crept over the eastern ridges, Scarlet had made her decision. She would remain in the Apache camp, at least until Holloway was well enough to travel. It was not merely obligation that kept her there, though she told herself it was. Something deeper, something she was not yet ready to name, had taken root during her midnight conversation with Tahu. When she emerged from the wickiup, she found him waiting, a small pack and water skin in his hands. "You still wish to leave?" he asked, his expression carefully neutral. Scarlet shook her head. "Not yet. Mr. Holloway is too ill to travel, and I won't abandon him." Something flickered in Tahu's eyes, relief, perhaps, or simple approval of her loyalty. He set the pack aside. "Then you will need to earn your place here. No one eats who does not work." "What would you have me do?" she asked, lifting her chin. "Come," he said, turning toward the center of the camp. "Nasha will show you." The next weeks passed in a blur of unfamiliar tasks and gradual acceptance. Under Nasha's stern but patient guidance, Scarlet learned to grind mesquite beans into flour, to cure meat for storage, to identify desert plants with medicinal properties. Her hands, once soft and unmarked, grew calloused and strong. Holloway's condition improved slowly. The infection in his shoulder had been severe, requiring poultices and teas that left him drifting between consciousness and fevered dreams. When lucid, he watched Scarlet's growing comfort among the Apache with undisguised disapproval. "They're savages, Miss Fox," he hissed one afternoon as she brought him fresh water. "Don't let their hospitality fool you. The moment we're back among civilized folk, they'll go back to scalping settlers." "They saved our lives," Scarlet reminded him sharply, "and I've seen no evidence of the barbarism you describe." "That's because you're bewitched by that Apache buck who follows you with his eyes," Holloway retorted. "I've seen the way he looks at you, like you're his property already." Scarlet felt heat rise to her cheeks, partly from anger, partly from the uncomfortable awareness that she had indeed noticed Tahu's gaze upon her. "You're delirious," she said curtly. "Rest, Mr. Holloway. The sooner you recover, the sooner we can leave." Yet as the days passed, the prospect of leaving became increasingly complex for Scarlet. She found unexpected joy in the simplicity of Apache life, the rhythm of work and rest, the closeness to nature, the absence of the social constraints that had always chafed at her in Boston society. Most afternoons, after completing her chores, she would climb to a small outcropping above the camp, where the view stretched for miles across the rugged landscape. Sometimes Tahu would join her, and they would sit in companionable silence as the sun painted the desert in hues of gold and crimson. "Your hair matches the sunset," he remarked one evening, breaking their usual quiet. Scarlet touched her unbound locks self-consciously. Among the Apache women, she stood out vividly, not just for her pale skin, but for the flame-colored hair that had earned her curious glances and the nickname Woman of Fire among the children. "In my world it's considered quite unfashionable," she admitted. "My mother used to say it was my cross to bear." Tahu frowned. Why would something so beautiful be a burden? The simple question, asked without artifice, struck Scarlet deeply. How many times had she wished for dark, manageable hair like the other girls in her social circle? How many hours had she spent trying to tame it into submission beneath bonnets and pins? "Beauty is defined differently where I come from," she said after a moment. "What matters most is fitting in, not standing out." "Then your people are blind," Tahu said with quiet certainty. They fell silent again, but something had shifted between them. A barrier lowered, a truth acknowledged. As the days stretched into weeks, Scarlet found herself drawn more deeply into the life of the camp. She attended a naming ceremony for a newborn, helped prepare for a hunt, and even joined the women in their evening songs. The strangeness of Apache customs gradually gave way to understanding, and with understanding came respect. Tahu became her bridge between worlds, explaining traditions, translating conversations, teaching her words in his language. Sometimes his hand would brush against hers as he demonstrated how to weave a basket or string a bow, and Scarlet found herself lingering in those brief contacts, savoring the warmth of his skin against hers. It was dangerous territory, she knew. Whatever was growing between them had no future in either of their worlds, yet in the isolation of the mountain camp, surrounded by the vast emptiness of the desert, such concerns seemed distant and unimportant. One morning, as Scarlet was gathering herbs with Nasha beyond the camp's perimeter, the old woman suddenly froze, head tilted as if listening. "Riders," she said, her voice tense. "Many riders." Before Scarlet could respond, Tahu appeared, bow in hand, his expression grim. "Texas Rangers," he said. 12, maybe more. They are following our hunting party's tracks." Fear clutched at Scarlet's heart. The Rangers were notorious for their harsh treatment of Indians, particularly those who lived outside the reservation boundaries. "What will you do?" she asked. "The children and elders are already being moved to the high caves," Tahu replied. "The rest will defend the camp if necessary." "Let me speak to them," Scarlet urged. "I'm one of them. They'll listen to me." Tahu's eyes darkened. "Are you? One of them?" The question hung between them, laden with implications neither was prepared to address. "I can prevent bloodshed," she insisted. "Please, Tahu." After a moment's hesitation, he nodded. "Come, but stay behind me until I am certain of their intentions." They descended the trail rapidly, reaching the camp as the Rangers approached the plateau. The Apache warriors had taken defensive positions among the rocks, arrows nocked and ready. The Rangers halted at the edge of the camp, their captain raising a hand to signal his men to hold their fire. He was a hard-faced man with a grey-streaked beard and eyes that had witnessed too much frontier violence. "We're looking for survivors from a caravan that was attacked 3 weeks back," he called out. "Intelligence says they might have been brought here." Tahu stepped forward, Scarlet slightly behind him. "I am Tahu of the Mescalero. We have no quarrel with you if you have none with us." The captain's eyes narrowed as he spotted Scarlet. "Good Lord, is that a white woman? Step forward, ma'am." Scarlet moved to stand beside Tahu, conscious of the tension radiating from the warriors hidden among the rocks. "I am Scarlet Fox," she said clearly. "My father's caravan was attacked by Mexican bandoleros in the canyon near the Rio Grande. The Apache saved me and another survivor." Murmurs spread among the rangers. The captain studied her with open suspicion. "You expect us to believe these savages rescued you out of the goodness of their hearts? Ma'am, blink twice if you're being held against your will." Anger flared within Scarlet. "I am here by choice, Captain. These people have shown me nothing but kindness and respect. The real danger in these parts comes from the bandoleros who murdered my father and his men." "Bandoleros working with Apache renegades," the captain corrected. "We've been tracking both groups for months. They're in league with each other." "That's a lie," Tahu said coldly. "The bandoleros raid our hunting grounds as well. We are enemies, not allies." The standoff might have deteriorated further, if not for the unexpected appearance of Holloway, stumbling from the healing lodge. "Captain," he called, his voice weak but urgent, "I'm Jedediah Holloway, wagon master for Thomas Fox's expedition. What the lady says is true. The Apache saved us both." The captain dismounted slowly, keeping one hand near his pistol. "You're certain of this, Holloway? These Indians didn't have anything to do with the attack?" "No, sir. It was Mexicans, plain as day. This man here," he gestured to Tahu, "killed half a dozen of them with his bow before carrying Miss Fox to safety." A long silence followed as the captain weighed this unexpected testimony. Finally, he nodded. "I'll take your word for it, Holloway. But both of you need to come with us now. Fort Davis is no more than 2 days' ride, and there are proper medical facilities there." Scarlet felt Tahu stiffen beside her. The moment of decision had arrived sooner than either had anticipated. "Mr. Holloway is welcome to go with you," she said carefully. "But I have promised to remain until the next full moon, as a gesture of gratitude to those who saved my life." "Miss Fox," the captain said, his tone hardening, "these mountains aren't safe. The army is planning a major operation against both the Apache bands and the Mexican raiders. I cannot guarantee your safety if you remain." "A major operation?" Tahu asked sharply. "Against people who have done nothing but defend their ancestral lands?" The captain's hand moved closer to his pistol. "I've said more than I should. Miss Fox, I must insist you come with us. Your father was a respected businessman. His associates in San Antonio are eager to ensure your safe return." Holloway stepped forward, swaying slightly from weakness. "Miss Fox, please, there's nothing for you here. These people have been kind, yes, but we don't belong among them. You know that." Scarlet looked from Holloway to the captain, then to Tahu, whose face had become an expressionless mask. She thought of the life that awaited her in San Antonio or Boston. The pitying glances, the whispered speculation about her time among savages, the pressure to marry quickly to quell the rumors that would inevitably arise. Then she thought of the peace she had found in this place, of the strength she had discovered within herself, of the way Tahu looked at her, not as damaged goods or an obligation, but as a woman of value. 2 days, she said finally. "I need 2 days to prepare for the journey. Return then, and I will go with you." The captain frowned but nodded reluctantly. 2 days, Miss Fox. We'll make camp at the base of the mountain and escort you and Holloway to Fort Davis when you're ready. As the rangers departed with a weak but relieved Holloway, Scarlet turned to find Tahu already walking away, his back rigid with unspoken emotion. "Tahu, wait!" she called, hurrying after him. He stopped but did not turn. "You have made your choice," he said, his voice devoid of inflection. "There is nothing more to say." "I haven't chosen anything," she protested. "I only bought us time to think." Now he did turn, his eyes fierce with contained passion. "There is no us, Scarlet Fox. There is only the path you must walk and the one I must walk. They do not lie in the same direction." "Don't they?" she challenged, stepping closer to him. "These past weeks I have felt more alive, more myself than I ever did in Boston. You've shown me a world where I'm valued for my strength, not just my appearance or social connections." "And what of your world?" Tahu countered, his voice low and intense. "Would it value me for anything but my ability to track or scout? Would your people see me as a man worthy of standing beside you?" The brutal honesty of his question struck Scarlet silent. She knew the answer as well as he did. In the settlements, in the cities of the East, an Apache man would never be accepted as an equal, let alone as the companion of a merchant's daughter. "My world is flawed," she admitted finally, "but yours has no place for me either. I've seen how some of the women look at me, how the elders still debate whether I should be here. They fear what they do not understand," Tahu said, unconsciously echoing his words from weeks before. As your people fear us, then we are caught between worlds, Scarlet whispered, belonging fully to neither. For a moment they stood facing each other, the weight of impossible choices pressing down upon them. Then, with a gentleness that belied his warrior's strength, Tahu reached out to touch a strand of her copper hair. "When I first saw you in that canyon," he said quietly, "I thought you were a spirit of the desert, too fierce to die, too beautiful to be real. Each day since has only proven that first impression true." Scarlet's heart quickened at his words, at the warmth of his fingers against her cheek. "Tahu, go with the Rangers," he interrupted, dropping his hand. "Return to your people. It is the only way you will be safe when the soldiers come." "And what of you?" she asked, catching his wrist before he could turn away. "What will happen to your people, to you, when this operation begins?" A shadow crossed his face. "We will fight as we have always fought, or we will move deeper into the mountains as we have always moved. The desert has sheltered the people for generations. It will shelter us again." "Let me help," Scarlet urged. "If I return to Fort Davis, I might learn more about their plans. I could find a way to warn you." Tahu shook his head firmly. "I will not allow you to risk yourself for us. The Rangers already suspect your loyalty is divided. If they discovered you passing information to the Apache," the unspoken conclusion hung in the air between them, "such an act would be considered treason, punishable by imprisonment or worse. I cannot simply leave, knowing what's coming," Scarlet insisted. "Not when—" She stopped, the words catching in her throat. "Not when what?" Tahu asked, his dark eyes searching hers. Instead of answering, Scarlet closed the distance between them and pressed her lips to his. For an instant, he remained motionless, surprised by her boldness. Then his arms encircled her, drawing her against his chest as he returned the kiss with a passion that matched her own. When they finally parted, both breathless, Tahu rested his forehead against hers. "This cannot be," he murmured, even as his hands remained at her waist, unwilling to release her. "Why?" she challenged. "Because of the color of our skin? Because our peoples are enemies? Because I would not see you torn between worlds as I have been," he answered. "It is a pain I would spare you." Scarlet placed her palm against his cheek, feeling the strong line of his jaw beneath her fingers. "Some choices are worth the pain they bring," she said softly. "Some loves are worth fighting for, even when the world stands against them." The word love hung between them, neither acknowledging it directly yet both recognizing its truth. What had begun as gratitude and curiosity had transformed day by day into something deeper and more profound than either had anticipated. Tahu covered her hand with his own, turning his face to press a kiss into her palm. 2 days, he said. "We have 2 days to find a path forward, if one exists." As dusk fell over the camp that evening, an unexpected visitor arrived. A Mexican vaquero, his clothes dusty from hard riding, was escorted to the council fire by 2 Apache warriors. He spoke rapidly in Spanish, gesturing toward the valley below. Tahu, listening intently, translated for Scarlet. "He says the Rangers are not alone. A full company of cavalry has joined them, with artillery. They camp less than half a day's ride from here." The vaquero continued, his expression grave. "His people have heard that the attack will come at dawn 2 days from now," Tahu relayed. "The soldiers plan to drive us toward the border, where the Mexican army waits. We are to be crushed between them." Chief Nantai spoke at length, his weathered face somber in the firelight. "The chief has decided," Tahu told Scarlet when the elder had finished. "We leave tonight, traveling north into the high country where the cavalry cannot follow." "All of you?" Scarlet asked, glancing around at the women preparing meals, the children playing nearby. "All of us," Tahu confirmed. "This camp will be abandoned by midnight." The Mexican messenger departed as quickly as he had come, slipping away into the gathering darkness. The camp erupted into controlled activity, wickiups dismantled, essential supplies packed onto travois, horses gathered and prepared for the journey. Scarlet worked alongside the women, helping to pack dried meat and herbs, to secure water skins and disassemble lodges. As she worked, a realization crystallized within her. She had no desire to return to Fort Davis, to the stifling confines of civilization. Here, among people her own society considered primitive, she had found not just acceptance but purpose. Yet her presence complicated the tribe's escape. The Rangers would search for her when she failed to appear in 2 days. They would track the Apache with even greater determination, believing she had been taken against her will. When Nasha approached her with a bundle of travel provisions, Scarlet made her decision. "I cannot go with you," she said quietly. The old woman's eyes narrowed. "You choose to return to your people after all?" "No," Scarlet replied, her resolve strengthening. "I choose to remain behind, to tell the Rangers that your people have gone south, toward Mexico. It will buy you time to reach the northern mountains." Nasha studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You have the heart of the people, woman of fire. But Tahu will not agree to this plan." "Tahu must think of his people first," Scarlet said. "As must I." When she explained her intention to Tahu, his reaction was as predicted. "Absolutely not," he declared, continuing to secure supplies to a pack horse. "You will come with us." "And lead the Rangers straight to your new camp?" Scarlet challenged. "They're already suspicious of my loyalty. If I disappear with you, they'll hunt us relentlessly. If you stay, they may imprison you. Or worse," Tahu argued, turning to face her. "I will not leave you to that fate." Scarlet stepped closer, lowering her voice so the others could not hear. "Tahu, listen to me. I can convince them that I was held here against my will, that I escaped as your people fled south. They'll believe me. They want to believe the worst of the Apache. You would paint us as kidnappers and savages." His voice held a note of hurt beneath the anger. "I would say whatever is necessary to protect you," she countered. "To protect what we've found together." Around them, the camp was nearly dismantled, the tribe preparing to depart under cover of darkness. Time was running short for both of them. Tahu took her hands in his expression torn between admiration and fear for her safety. "There is another way," he said after a moment. "Come with us now. When we reach the Northern Territory, I will take you to a trading post run by a man who deals fairly with the people. From there you can return to your world, if that is still your wish." It was a compromise, a middle path that might allow both of them to survive the coming conflict. Yet something in Scarlet rebelled against it, against the idea of simply walking away from the fight, of abandoning those she had come to care for. "And if that isn't my wish?" she asked softly. "If I no longer know where I belong?" Tahu's grip on her hands tightened. "Then we will find a place between worlds. Together." The word "together" resonated through Scarlet like a promise, a possibility she had never dared to imagine before coming to this wild land. Here was a man who saw her strength rather than her vulnerability, who valued her courage rather than her conformity. "Together," she repeated, a smile breaking through her concern. "I like the sound of that." As the last of the supplies were packed and the horses readied, Tahu drew Scarlet aside one final time. From around his neck, he removed a small leather pouch suspended on a beaded cord. "This was my father's, and his father's before him," he explained, placing it around her neck. "It contains sacred herbs and a stone from our ancestral lands. It will protect you on the journey ahead." Scarlet touched the pouch, feeling the smooth contours of the stone within. "I have nothing to give you in return," she said regretfully. Tahu's smile was gentle as he tucked a strand of her copper hair behind her ear. "You have given me something no one else could, a vision of a world where a Mescalero warrior and a Boston merchant's daughter might find common ground. That is gift enough." Under the vast canopy of stars, with the mountains rising like silent guardians around them, they shared one more kiss. A promise between two souls who had found each other against all odds. Then, with Scarlet mounted behind him on his sturdy Mustang, Tahu led his people away from the plateau that had been their home, toward uncertain sanctuary in the northern wilderness. Behind them, the campfires died to embers, then to ash, leaving only the wind to whisper secrets to the empty sky. The journey north tested every limit of endurance. For 7 days, the Apache band traveled through terrain too rugged for cavalry to follow. Narrow canyons where a misstep meant death, steep ridges where the horses struggled for footing, dense pine forests where the darkness at noon was nearly complete. Scarlet, raised in the comfort of Eastern society, found reserves of strength she had never known she possessed. She rode without complaint, ate what was available, and slept on the hard ground wrapped in a single blanket. When her legs grew too numb to ride further, she walked, keeping pace with the women and children, Tahu watched her transformation with quiet pride. This was not the same woman he had carried, unconscious, from the canyon of death weeks before. This Scarlet had the resilience of a desert plant, bending with the harsh conditions but never breaking. On the 8th day, as they crossed a high plateau dusted with early snow, Chief Nantai called a halt. Through Tahu's translation, Scarlet learned that they had reached the edge of traditional Mescalero territory. Beyond lay lands claimed by other Apache bands, some friendly, some not. The chief believes we should divide into smaller groups, Tahu explained as they gathered around a small smokeless fire. Some will seek shelter with our Chiricahua cousins, others will winter in the hidden valleys to the northwest. And us? Scarlet asked, no longer pretending there was any separation between her fate and Tahu's. A smile touched his lips at her choice of words. There is a place I know. A valley, high in the mountains where few have ever traveled. Game is plentiful, and natural hot springs keep the cold at bay even in winter. We could build a lodge there away from both your world and mine. The vision he painted was seductive in its simplicity, a life stripped to essentials, free from the prejudices and conflicts that plagued the borderlands. Yet Scarlet, practical even in her dreaming, saw the flaws in such isolation. We cannot hide forever, she said gently. Sooner or later, the outside world will find us. Or we will need something from it. Medicine, tools, contact with others. Tahu nodded, acknowledging the truth in her words. There is a trading post 3 days' ride from the valley. The man who runs it, Jacob Stern, is a German who came here 30 years ago. He trades fairly with all peoples and asks no questions about a man's past or his companions. You trust him, as much as I trust any white man who is not you, Tahu replied, with a hint of his rare humor. The next morning, as the band prepared to separate into smaller groups, an unexpected council was called. Scarlet, still learning the ways of the people, stood uncertainly at the edge of the gathering as the elders spoke in rapid Apache. Nasha appeared at her side, her wrinkled face grave. They speak of you, the old woman said quietly. Of you and Tahu. Scarlet's heart sank. Despite the acceptance she had earned during her time with the tribe, she had always known that some viewed her presence with suspicion or outright hostility. Now, with the band facing its greatest crisis in years, those sentiments would naturally resurface. They wish me to leave, she guessed, straightening her spine against the anticipated rejection. To her surprise, Nasha shook her head. Not all. Some see how Tahu looks at you, and you at him. They remember the old stories of times before the white man came, when the people sometimes took wives from other tribes. Why should this be different? Before Scarlet could respond, Tahu approached, his expression unreadable. The council wishes to speak with you, he said, offering his hand. With Nasha on one side and Tahu on the other, Scarlet approached the circle of elders. Chief Nantai's weathered face revealed nothing as he spoke, his words slow and deliberate. The chief asks if it is true that you wish to remain with Tahu, with the people, rather than return to your own kind. Tahu translated, his voice carefully neutral. Scarlet met the chief's gaze directly. It is true, she replied without hesitation. If you will have me. Nantai spoke again at greater length, his tone questioning. He asks why, Tahu said. Why would a woman of your standing choose a life of hardship among those your people call enemies? It was the question Scarlet had asked herself countless times over the past weeks. The answer, when it came, was simpler than she had expected. Because here I have found truth, she said, her voice growing stronger as she continued. In my world, we build walls of proper behavior and polite lies. We pretend not to see injustice if acknowledging it would disrupt our comfort. Among the people, I have learned to live honestly, to face both beauty and hardship with clear eyes. As Tahu translated, murmurs spread among the elders. An older woman, the widow of a respected warrior, Scarlet had been told, spoke next, her question sharp and challenging. She asks what skills you bring to the people, Tahu relayed. How will you contribute when winter comes and food grows scarce? I am strong and willing to learn, Scarlet answered. I can already prepare hides and medicines as Nasha has taught me. I speak English and Spanish, which may be useful in trading. And I know the ways of soldiers, how they think, how they plan their campaigns. That knowledge might help keep the people safe. The questioning continued, each elder taking their turn to probe her resolve, to test her commitment to a life so different from the one she had known. Through it all, Scarlet stood tall, answering without defensiveness or pride, simply stating her truth as she now understood it. Finally, Chief Nantai raised his hand for silence. He spoke at length, his gaze never leaving Scarlet's face as Tahu translated. "The chief says that the path you choose is difficult. Many will never understand or accept it. Not his people, not yours. You will belong fully to neither world, yet must find the strength to walk in both. This is a heavy burden for any soul," Nantai continued, his expression softening slightly. "But he also says that he has watched you these past weeks. You have shown courage in the face of loss, adaptability in strange surroundings, and loyalty to those who first were strangers to you. These are qualities the people have always valued." The chief reached for a small clay pot beside him, dipping his finger into red ochre. With deliberate movements, he drew a line across Scarlet's forehead, then down each cheek. "With these marks, I acknowledge you as a friend of the people," Tahu translated, his voice thick with emotion. "Not yet one of us, but no longer a stranger. Your fate and Tahu's are now bound together in the eyes of the council." A weight Scarlet hadn't realized she was carrying lifted from her shoulders. This wasn't full acceptance. That would take years to earn, if it ever came. But it was permission. Permission to love Tahu openly, to build a life between worlds. As the council dispersed, preparing for the final separations, Tahu took her hand in his. "Are you certain?" he asked quietly. "Once we leave for the valley, there may be no returning to your former life." Scarlet looked up at him, at the face that had become more dear to her than any other. "My former life ended the day my father died in that canyon," she said. "What matters now is the life we build together, whatever form it takes." Later that day, as the sun began its descent toward distant peaks, Scarlet and Tahu said their farewells to the band that had been their community. Nasha pressed a small bundle of herbs into Scarlet's hands, whispering instructions for their use in healing and in childbirth. The implication wasn't lost on either woman, and Scarlet flushed, even as she thanked the elder for her foresight. Chief Nantai gave Tahu a solemn blessing, clasping his shoulders in a gesture of respect between warriors. Though Scarlet couldn't understand the words, she recognized their importance in the way Tahu straightened, pride and responsibility settling on him like a mantle. Then, with provisions for the journey and Tahu's few personal possessions secured to their horses, they rode northwest toward the hidden valley that would become their sanctuary. 3 others accompanied them, a young warrior named Kem, who had been Tahu's hunting companion since boyhood, his wife Ayana, and her younger brother Taini. "A man should not live without his clan," Tahu explained as they made camp that first night. "Even a small one." Scarlet, watching Ayana expertly prepare a meal from their limited supplies, felt a surge of gratitude for these people who had chosen to share their uncertain future. None of them had ever set foot in Boston or San Antonio, yet they had accepted her more readily than many in her own society would have accepted them. The journey to the valley took 4 days rather than 3, slowed by an early winter storm that blanketed the higher elevations in snow. When they finally crested the last ridge, Scarlet gasped at the vista that spread before them. The valley lay like a hidden jewel among towering peaks, a natural fortress accessible only through the narrow pass they now traversed. A clear stream wound through meadows still green despite the approaching winter. At the far end, steam rose from dark pools, surrounded by rock formations, the hot springs Tahu had mentioned. "It's beautiful," she breathed, understanding why he had chosen this place. "The people call it Valley of the Hidden Water," Tahu said, guiding his horse carefully down the steep trail. "Few know of its existence, even the army maps do not show it." They made camp beside the hot springs that night, grateful for the natural warmth that kept the biting cold at bay. As they sat around a small fire, sharing a meal of venison Kemi had shot during their descent, Scarlet realized she felt something she had not experienced since before the attack on the caravan: peace. It was not the complacent peace of ignorance or denial. She knew all too well the dangers that still threatened: the army's campaign against the Apache, the bandoleros who controlled the border regions, the harsh realities of winter in the high country. Yet here, in this moment, with these people who had become her clan, she felt a profound rightness that transcended circumstance. The next morning, they began the work of establishing a more permanent camp. Using skills honed over generations of adapting to new territories, the small group quickly identified the best location for their lodges, sheltered from the prevailing winds, but close enough to the springs to benefit from their warmth. Scarlet worked alongside Ayana, learning to construct a winter wickiup more substantial than the temporary shelter she had known in the summer camp. The frame was built of flexible pine saplings, bent into a dome and lashed together with rawhide. Over this they layered pine boughs, hides, and finally an outer covering of canvas Tahu had acquired during his time as an army scout. By nightfall, 2 lodges stood complete, one for Kemi's family and a smaller one for Tahu and Scarlet. As darkness fell and the others retired to their lodge, Scarlet found herself suddenly shy, standing at the entrance to the dwelling she would share with Tahu. He approached quietly, carrying an armload of furs for bedding. "We can build a separate shelter for you if you wish," he offered, misinterpreting her hesitation. "There is no hurry for—" "No," she interrupted, finding her courage. "I want to be with you. This isn't how I imagined my life would unfold." Tahu set down the furs and took her hands in his. "Nor I mine," he admitted. "The path the Creator sets before us is rarely the one we would have chosen for ourselves." "Do you regret it?" she asked, searching his face in the dim light. "This path we've taken." In answer, he drew her close, his lips finding hers in a kiss that spoke more eloquently than words. When they finally parted, he rested his forehead against hers, their breath mingling in the cold air. "I would rather lose everything," he whispered, "than spend one day without your love." The words, so simple, so profound, sealed a covenant between them more binding than any ceremony either of their cultures could provide. That night, beneath furs and blankets in their small lodge, they consummated that covenant, bodies and souls meeting in the ancient dance of passion and tenderness. In the days that followed, their small clan established routines that would carry them through the winter. Keme and Tahu hunted deer and elk, bringing back not just meat but hides for clothing and bones for tools. Ayana taught Scarlet to preserve food using methods developed over centuries of desert living. Young Tiny proved adept at fishing in the stream that ran through their valley, supplementing their diet with trout and providing oil for their lamps. As promised, Tahu led Scarlet and Kemi to the trading post 3 weeks after their arrival in the valley. Jacob Stern's establishment was more substantial than Scarlet had expected. A sturdy log building with a stone chimney, nestled in a protected hollow, 2 days' ride from their camp. The German trader, a bear of a man with a silver beard and shrewd blue eyes, showed no surprise at the unusual composition of their party. He dealt fairly with them, exchanging the excess hides and dried meat they had brought for coffee, flour, ammunition, and metal tools they couldn't forge themselves. When Tahu introduced Scarlet as his wife, Stern merely nodded, his expression revealing neither approval nor condemnation. "The mountains care not for the color of a person's skin," he observed in his still thick accent, "only for the strength of their spirit." Before they departed, Stern pulled Scarlet aside. "It won't be easy, the life you've chosen," he said quietly. "But I've lived out here 40 years now, watching the clash of worlds. Those who find love across the divide, they're the bridge builders. The future belongs to them, though they rarely live to see it." His words stayed with Scarlet long after they returned to the valley. Bridge builders. Was that what she and Tahu were attempting? Not an escape from their respective worlds, but a connection between them. Winter settled fully upon the mountains, transforming the valley into a world of white silence, broken only by the occasional crack of a distant branch surrendering to the weight of snow. Inside their lodge, warmed by a small fire and each other's presence, Scarlet and Tahu created their own universe, one where differences in background and culture became sources of fascination rather than division. She taught him to read and write English, using charcoal on strips of deerskin. He taught her the language of his people, words that shaped the world differently than those she had grown up with. Together, they discovered the universal language of touch, of laughter, of quiet companionship in the long winter nights. When spring finally began to soften the edges of their snowy fortress, bringing the first green shoots through the melting drifts, Scarlet shared news that both thrilled and terrified her. She was carrying Tahu's child. His reaction, pure joy tempered by protective concern, swept away her fears. That evening, as they sat with their small clan around the communal fire, Tahu announced the pregnancy in the Apache way, speaking of the new spirit that would soon join them with reverence and gratitude. Ayana, herself expecting a child in the late summer, embraced Scarlet with genuine happiness. "Our children will be cousins," she said in her improving English. "Family, family." The word resonated through Scarlet with unexpected power. She had lost her blood family in that canyon months ago, yet here in this remote valley she had found a new one, built not on shared ancestry, but on shared experience, shared hardship, shared love. The seasons turned, bringing growth and change to their small community. Ayana's son was born as summer reached its peak, a healthy boy with his father's quick smile and his mother's thoughtful eyes. 2 months later, as the aspens began to turn gold on the surrounding slopes, Scarlet gave birth to a daughter, a child with copper skin a shade lighter than her father's and hair the color of autumn leaves. They named her Nasha, after the medicine woman who had first welcomed Scarlet into the Apache world. "A bridge between worlds," Tahu said, cradling his infant daughter with a tenderness that brought tears to Scarlet's eyes. Like her mother, that winter was easier than the first, their lodge more substantial, their preparations more thorough. The trading post provided a vital connection to the outside world, bringing not just supplies, but news, some troubling, some hopeful. The Army's campaign against the Apache had faltered as political winds shifted in Washington. A new treaty had been proposed, one that might allow the scattered bands to return to portions of their traditional territories under certain conditions. The Mexican government, too, was reconsidering its hardline stance against indigenous peoples, pressured by international opinion and internal unrest. "Do you want to rejoin your people?" Scarlet asked Tahu one night as they lay beside the sleeping form of their daughter. "If this treaty offers genuine peace?" He was silent for a long moment, his hand absently stroking her hair. "My people are here," he finally said. "You, Nasha, Kime, and his family. The band accepted you as a friend, but they might never fully accept our daughter. She belongs to both worlds and to neither, as do we." Scarlet understood. Their valley had become more than a refuge. It was a testing ground for a different way of being, one that transcended the divisions that tore at the borderlands. As spring bloomed once more across the valley, bringing their second year in the mountains to a close, Jacob Stern arrived unexpectedly at their camp. The aging trader, who had never before made the difficult journey to their hidden home, brought news that would change everything. "The new territorial governor is calling for reconciliation," he told them, as they gathered in the larger lodge. "He's established a trading post at the confluence of the Rio Grande and the Pecos, declared it neutral ground for all peoples. Apache, Mexican, American, all are welcome to trade there without fear of arrest or attack." Scarlet and Tahu exchanged glances, both recognizing the significance of this development. "A bridge between worlds," Scarlet murmured, echoing the words they had used to describe their daughter. "The governor needs people who can move between these worlds," Stern continued, his shrewd gaze shifting between them. "People who understand the languages, the customs, the fears and hopes of all sides." He asked if I knew of any such individuals. "I thought of you." The proposition hung in the air between them, an opportunity to emerge from isolation, to put their unique perspective in service of a larger peace. It was not without risk. Prejudice ran deep on all sides of the conflict, yet the potential to help shape a future where their daughter might move freely between cultures was powerfully compelling. That night, after Stern had retired to the guest lodge hastily prepared for him, Scarlet and Tahu sat beside the fire, their sleeping daughter cradled between them. "What do you think?" she asked, watching the flames dance shadows across his thoughtful face. "I think," he said slowly, "that we did not find each other by chance. Perhaps the Creator placed us on converging paths for a purpose beyond our own happiness." Scarlet nodded, understanding. "To build bridges." "To build bridges," he agreed, reaching across their daughter to take her hand. "Not just for ourselves, but for all who come after us." The decision was not made that night, or the next. Such a momentous change in their lives required careful consideration, consultation with their small clan, prayers and reflections. Yet as spring deepened towards summer, a consensus emerged. They would accept the governor's invitation, at least long enough to assess whether his vision of reconciliation was genuine or merely political expediency. On a clear morning in early summer, they broke camp for the journey south. Their lodges were dismantled, their few possessions packed onto horses and travois. The valley had sheltered them through the most dangerous period of their union. Now it was time to test whether the wider world had space for the life they had built. As they crested the ridge that marked the valley's edge, Scarlet paused, turning for one last look at the place that had nurtured their love through its fragile beginnings. Tahu halted beside her, their daughter secure in a cradleboard on his back. "We will return," he said, reading the emotion in her eyes. "If not to live, then to remember, to show Nasha where she was born." Scarlet nodded, brushing away unexpected tears. "I'm not afraid," she said, surprising herself with the truth of it. "Whatever comes, we face it together." Tahu reached for her hand, his grip strong and sure. "Together," he echoed. "Always." With their small clan gathered around them, and the future stretching unknown before them, they turned their horses toward the distant border, not as fugitives this time, but as emissaries of a hope that transcended the artificial lines drawn on maps and in men's hearts. Behind them, the Valley of Hidden Waters waited, a sanctuary that would remain when they needed it. Before them lay a world still divided by fear and mistrust, yet perhaps ready at last to listen to those who had learned to love across its boundaries. As they descended the mountain, the first golden rays of sunrise broke across the eastern peaks, illuminating the path before them. Scarlet felt her daughter stir against Tahu's back, waking to a new day and all its possibilities. "I would rather lose everything," she whispered, echoing the words that had become their private vow, "than spend one day without your love." Tahu's smile held all the warmth of the rising sun. "Then you shall never lose anything," he promised, "for my love is yours until the stars fall from the sky." Together they rode toward the horizon, carrying with them the most powerful force in any world, love that refused to be bounded by borders, prejudice, or fear, love that built bridges where walls had stood for generations. And in their daughter's eyes, bright with curiosity for the journey ahead, shone the future they had dared to create. Not just for themselves, but for all who would follow the path they blazed across the divided heart of a wounded land. The end, dear listener. As the dust settles on our tale of Scarlet and Tahu, I invite you to carry a piece of their courage with you into your own world. Their story reminds us that the most beautiful transformations often begin in our darkest moments, when the path ahead seems most uncertain. Like Scarlet, perhaps you found yourself in unfamiliar territory, facing challenges that test the limits of your strength. Remember that within you lies the same resilience that carried her through desert canyons and mountain winters, the ability to adapt, to learn, and to discover new depths of your own spirit. Like Tahu, you may stand between worlds, caught between expectations and your own truth. His wisdom teaches us that sometimes our greatest purpose emerges not from following established trails, but from blazing new ones that bridge seemingly impossible divides. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, release the weight of borders that others have drawn around your heart. Let the boundaries between what was and what could be dissolve like morning mist in the desert sun. Your story, like theirs, is still being written with each choice, each moment of courage, each act of love that transcends fear. May you rest deeply and peacefully, protected by the knowledge that the same stars that watched over Scarlet and Tahu in their valley watch over you now. And when morning comes, may you rise with the certainty that even in this vast, sometimes harsh world, your unique spirit creates ripples of possibility that reach further than you know. You are never truly alone in your journey. Like our lovers who found belonging in the most unexpected place, your heart knows the way home, even when the path seems hidden. Sleep well, dream deeply, and awaken refreshed to write the next chapter of your own remarkable story. With deepest gratitude. Wild West Whispers, thank you for staying with us until the end of this journey. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to our channel. Your support truly means the world to us and helps us keep telling stories full of love, healing, and second chances. At the end of this video, you'll see a new suggested story from our channel. Click it. Let your heart be moved once more.